მეგობარი აქტის გარკვევა დაიწყო და მოდი ერთად მოусვინოთ.
Pass HR 36.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
HR 36, a bill to counter the influence of the Chinese Communist Party, the Iranian regime, and the Russian Federation in the nation of Georgia.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Mast, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Olszewski, each will control 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Florida.
Madam Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members may have 5 legislative days to revise and extend their remarks and to include extraneous material on this measure.
Without objection.
Thank you, and I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
Gentleman is recognized.
Madam Speaker, the Republic of Georgia was once a prime contender for NATO and an ally of the United States, especially following Russia's 2008 invasion. The United States benefited from military and intelligence cooperation, and the Georgian people are well known for their pro-American sentiment. Unfortunately, our bilateral relationship with Georgia has been eroded by the ruling Georgia Dream Party's moves that mimic Russia's authoritarian tactics, as well as their rapprochement with China and Iran. The opportunities provided by pro-Western democratic Georgia are manifest. Georgia's strategic location on the Black Sea makes it a pivotal nation for trade through the Middle Corridor to Central Asia and can be a counterbalance to Iran and Russian influence in the region. I support this bipartisan bill introduced by Mr. Wilson because it takes an America First approach to the Republic of Georgia. This bill will impose sanctions on regime officials for their roles in undermining Georgia's sovereignty and pro-Western trajectory, as well as review our bilateral relationship, including assistance programs, and require a report that spotlights Russian intelligence actions in Georgia. However, this bill also provides Georgia with an alternative. Once the president certifies that Georgia has returned to its pro-Western trajectory, it promises enhanced people-to-people ties, military cooperation, and encourages an improved bilateral relationship. The United States should reward partners for good behavior. This bill is not an attack on the Georgian people. It seeks to support them by punishing rogue officials who are taking them further away from the United States. The House Foreign Affairs Committee favorably marked up a version of this bill during the last Congress, where it passed with a strong majority, and I expect it will receive the similar support today. I urge my colleagues to support this pragmatic approach to foreign policy and support this measure, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Florida reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of H.R. 36, a bipartisan bill designed to make sure the U.S. remains committed to Georgia's Euro-Atlantic and democratic aspirations. I thank my friend, Representative Wilson, for his tireless effort on this topic, in addition to his fervent work to support Ukraine. For years following the fall of communism, and particularly after the Rose Revolution in 2003, the people of Georgia have worked to successfully build their democracy and their economy, all while fostering aspirations to join the EU and NATO. The U.S., along with European partners, have played an integral role in ensuring that the path of integration was open to Georgia and that its people had the means to implement the necessary reforms. Georgia's story has been one of success. Georgia, strategically located on the Black Sea, is no stranger to larger geopolitical forces. Russia invaded Georgia in 2008 during the Beijing Olympics and proceeded to occupy 20% of its territory. Despite the persistent threat from Russia, Georgians continue to forge forward with democratic reforms and even made significant contributions to the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, as this legislation notes. However, we know too well from the experience in other parts of Europe and at home that democratic progress is fragile and requires constant attention. In February 2023, the Georgian government introduced a foreign agents bill in its parliament it claimed was aimed at transparency. However, the bill was set to impose burdensome restrictions on civil society organizations and independent media, stigmatizing them as foreign agents. Following warnings from the U.S. and partners in Europe, as well as waves of protests, the government withdrew the bill, only to reintroduce it in April of 2024. This time, despite massive protests, a presidential veto, additional rebukes from the US Congress, the Biden administration, and the EU, the Georgian parliament pushed through this legislation. Then, in another illustration of democratic backsliding, parliamentary elections were held in the fall of 2024 that were neither free nor fair and tainted by numerous and serious electoral violations. This legislation is a response to the deteriorating democratic situation in Georgia. It will let the Georgian people know that we stand by them in their quest for democracy, respect their rights, and deeper integration into the Euro-Atlantic community. This also provides a framework for appropriate cooperation with the Georgian government going forward. I'm pleased with the bipartisan work of this bill, look forward to its passage, and hope that it has the desired effect to show the people of Georgia that Congress is watching, the United States cares, and we want to ensure your future in Europe and NATO. I encourage my colleagues to join in supporting this measure, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Florida is now recognized again.
Madam Speaker, I yield 4 minutes to the gentleman from South Carolina, the sponsor of this legislation, Mr. Wilson.
From South Carolina is recognized.
Thank you very much, Chairman Brian Mast, and thank you for your leadership on behalf of the American people, and thank you, Madam Chair. I'm grateful for the bipartisan endorsement of this legislation. It's bipartisan, Republicans and Democrats, it's bicameral, Senate and House, and the Megobari bill, which promotes the people of the very brave people of the Republic of Georgia. For more than 155 days, the freedom-loving people of Georgia have peacefully taken to the streets in defense of the future and soul of their nation. They drape themselves in the flags of the United States and carry posters of our President Donald Trump as an indication of their love and affection for freedom and democracy. Their will is clear. They will not allow the illegal regime of the corrupt Besnisa Ivanishvili to drive their country into ruin and be a dependency of the failed Soviet Union. Georgia is a Black Sea nation that has always prized its hard-won freedom. Sadly, the will of the people is being subverted by the illegitimate Georgian Dream regime, an American-hating mafia cabal that seeks to sell the country to U.S. adversaries, including the Chinese Communist Party, giving away practically a port on the Black Sea that should be for the people of Georgia. Also subservient to the regime in Tehran that we know launched attacks against Israel just yesterday, and war criminal Putin, who seeks to make indeed the people of Georgia subservient. The Georgian people are among the bravest and most pro-American in the world. I have had the opportunity with 3 of my sons serving with Georgian troops across the world in Afghanistan and Iraq to see how brave and capable the troops are of Georgia. Georgian troops have fought alongside American troops in the global war on terrorism and has no limits on their assignments that they would undertake bravely and competently. In 2020, I was grateful to lead the Republican Study Committee National Security Report under then Chairman, now Speaker Mike Johnson, calling for sanctions on Ivanishvili. Republicans saw the threat then posed by this thug and his cronies. Georgian Dream has moved swiftly to criminalize association with America since the election of October 26. It rejected bids by American companies for construction of their strategic deep sea port to the Chinese Communist Party. Every major building contract over $100 million US have been awarded to the Chinese Communist Party or affiliated companies, state-owned companies of the Chinese Communist Party. This blocks America, middle class, and minerals in Central Asia, which additionally want to be friends of America and friends of Western civilization. The regime peddles in daily anti-American propaganda, accusing top officials of the U.S. government, including President Trump and the very appreciated Senate Foreign Affairs Chairman Jim Risch, of corruption as acting as tools of the deep state. In fact, just last week, there was a statement by a government official that Donald Trump was a tool of the deep state. As Trump administration State Department spokesman Tammy Bruce said, quote, regarding the continuing anti-democratic actions taken by the Georgian Dream government, as Vice President J.D. Vance said in Munich, you cannot win a democratic mandate by censoring your opponents or putting them in jail, nor can you win one by disregarding your basic electorate on questions like who gets to be part of our shared society, end of quote. This bill provides for sanctions against Georgian Dream thugs for their illegal actions. It also provides for stronger bilateral ties after confirmation of Georgia's return to adherence to its constitution. I urge support for this legislation for mutual benefit of the people of Georgia and the people of the United States. I yield back.
The gentleman yields. For
Reserve.
the gentleman from Florida reserves. Now the gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Tennessee, Representative Steve Cohen.
The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Speaker. Georgia's long been a great friend of the United States. I went to Georgia for their election when they elected the Dream ticket, the Georgia Dream, about 12 years ago. But the Georgia Dream has turned into a Georgia nightmare. In Georgia and America, Dr. King had a dream, and that dream still lives. But the dream in Georgia, the country, is no longer alive and is pulling that country closer to our adversaries. The illegitimate Georgia Dream Party, led by Ivanishvili, rigged the 2024 election, and they truly did rig it in that situation, and has been facing mass protests ever since. Every Sunday, there are mass protests.
Georgian Dream turns
Georgia,
Georgian nightmare.
Deprivation of freedoms and liberties. The Georgia Dream has orchestrated crackdowns on citizens, including banning the freedom of speech and assembly in Georgia, using violence against protesters, and abusing the court process to wrongfully imprison and charge protesters. The Georgian people have protested for over 150 consecutive days and still protesting today, especially on Sundays. They're calling for free and fair elections and the release of political prisoners. The United States has long supported freedom in Georgia and now is no different. The Meabari Act is an expression of that support. As ranking member of the Helsinki Commission, I'm proud to be the lead Democrat on the Meabari bill, along with my friend Joe Wilson. This act will evaluate all Georgia Dream officials for sanctions. They're found to have undermined Georgian democracy or engaged in corruption. They will be sanctioned. It also creates a report on Russian intelligence assets, in Georgia, and Russia-China cooperation to undermine Georgia's sovereignty. What's going on is basically a revolution where Ivanishvili, who runs the party and has investments in Russia, is trying to bring them closer to Russia and Putin. Lastly, the bill envisions a stronger U.S.-Georgia relationship once Georgia returns to its traditional Euro-Atlantic path mandated in its own constitution and demanded by its people. I want to thank Congressman Wilson and the other co-leads on this important legislation, Congressman Veazey and Hudson. I urge its passage, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Thank you.
I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield 2 minutes to the gentleman from Ohio, Representative Davidson.
Gentleman from Ohio is recognized.
I thank the chairman, and Madam Speaker, I generally support everything that the chairman supports. This is a wrong-headed bill. Our colleagues need to say no to this. The American people did not send us here to expand America's security blanket to more parts of the world. We don't have to get involved in every conflict we're invited to, and we certainly don't need to seek out extra ones. We can wish the people of Georgia well without expanding our commitment to be Europe's defense force. We've got a blank check to defend countries that, admittedly, Georgia can't really defend themselves well against Russia. They're not even spending 2% of their money, of their GDP, on defense in the current state. That's a minimum for admission to NATO. You couldn't blame them for thinking that it doesn't really matter, because even the biggest countries like Germany haven't historically hit that threshold either. But their economy isn't that big. So even if they were spending more, it wouldn't matter. This is the wrong approach to national security, and it also further dilutes the effectiveness of our sanctions regime. I think it's a terrible idea. I think my constituents are wondering, why are we doing this instead of the things that we campaigned on? I hope we get focused on an America First foreign policy. This isn't it. I oppose it, and I urge everyone else to as well. I yield back.
Gentleman reserves. Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have no further requests for time, and I am prepared to close if the other side has no further speakers. Very good.
Gentleman from Maryland is recognized for closing.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I yield myself as much time as I may consume for the purpose of closing. Madam Speaker, H.R. 36 works to show the people of Georgia that the United States remains committed to its Euro-Atlantic aspirations and provides a framework for appropriate cooperation with the Georgian government in light of worrying democratic backsliding in the country. I again thank my colleagues for their steadfast support and leadership on this issue in support of Georgia's ambitions to join NATO and the EU, and I hope my colleagues will join me and support this bill. I yield back the balance of my time.
The gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Florida is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I firmly believe that every country in the world should choose the United States of America as their first partner and our allies over dictatorships like Russia and China. It is essential that these countries walk the walk. American largesse will not be taken advantage of by those who accuse the United States of being part of a global war party or the global deep state. And I urge my colleagues to support this measure and stand with the people of Georgia and an America First foreign policy. And I yield the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields back. The question is, will the House suspend the rules and pass the bill H.R. 36? Those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. In the opinion of the chair, 2/3 being in the affirmative,
I request the yeas and nays.
the yeas and nays are requested. All those in favor of taking this vote by the yeas and nays will rise and remain standing until counted. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings of this question will be postponed. What purpose does the gentleman from Florida seek recognition?
Madam Speaker, I move that the House suspend the rules and pass H.R. 1486 as amended.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
H.R. 1486, a bill to impose sanctions with respect to economic or industrial espionage by foreign adversarial companies and for other purposes.
Pursuant to the rule, the gentleman from Florida, Mr. Mast, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. will each 20 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from